When you hear someone longing for the good old days, take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. We live in a great nation, and we are rightly proud of our history. We are beneficiaries of the labor and the grit and the courage of generations who came before. But I guess it's part of human nature, especially in times of change and uncertainty, to want to look backwards and long for some imaginary past when everything worked, when the economy hummed, and all politicians were wise, and every child was well-mannered, and America pretty much did whatever it wanted around the world. Guess what? It ain't so. The good old days weren't all that good. In fact, by almost every measure, America is better, and the world is better than it was 50 years ago, or 30 years ago, or even 8 years ago.
The fact that General Robinson is the first female COCOM is a good sign, because there are women officers of her quality in our officer corps now, from whom the President and I can select our senior most military leaders. She was selected because she was the most qualified officer for this job. I do hope, well, I know that there are more in her wake, more female officers in her wake, and I hope the excellence she represents is an inspiration to women to join our armed forces, because, as you know, I believe it's essential to preserve the high quality of a military that we now have in our all-volunteer force, that we reach into all parts of our population.
Stories regarding national security threats on this Monday, May 9, 2016. Iran test firing yet another ballistic missile, thumbing its nose at the controversial nuclear deal. All this happening amid a startling report on the shrinking of our U.S. armed forces.
So Tehran's new saber rattling, setting off some alarm bells. This latest missile test, if verified, puts U.S. and Israeli bases within the range of these missiles. It also comes at the worst possible time, because according to the Army Times, there are now fewer than 480,000 U.S. soldiers on active duty. That's a level that we have not seen in this country since before World War II.
Yeah, that's right. The Army Times is reporting that the number of active duty U.S. troops is at its lowest since 1940. Right now, we're at about 479,000, but the goal is to get down to about 475,000 by September, 460,000 by the following year, and 450,000 a year after that. Now, this is all according to a drawdown plan that was unveiled last July. So if those targets are met, that would mean that the number of active duty U.S. soldiers would be down by about 20% from what they were in 2010. You know, top Army officials have said that they don't want to make these cuts, but they say they have to because of budget cuts.
Debate spreading across the country tonight. President Obama weighing in on the treatment of transgender children at school. The White House now directing every public school to allow students to use bathrooms and locker rooms consistent with their gender identity. Opposing reaction fast and fierce, and ABC's Steve Osunsami with students caught in the middle of a national issue.
North of Atlanta, where one school district is already considering these federal guidelines, some parents are threatening to pull their kids from class.
They will never set foot in a Fannin County school again. I will stay at home every day and homeschool.
The district is calling for unisex bathrooms to accommodate transgender students or letting them choose the bathroom they need.
This is about a fear for not having federal funding.
Even a middle schooler spoke up at this crowded debate.
We shouldn't judge them or discriminate them.
Xavier Eaton, who's transgender, graduated from the school.
I was beaten up by 2 males who said that if I wanted to look like a guy, they would treat me like a guy.
The feelings are just as strong in Moncks Corner, South Carolina.
It should not be in the primary school system.
Sarah Gary is a sophomore and says the best day of her life was when the principal told her she could use the girls' bathroom.
Before I came out at Berkeley, nobody knew, so I didn't want to compromise that and go to the staff restroom.
These guidelines aren't law, but there's fear the federal government could withhold funds if the school districts don't take them seriously.
This morning, a new law wants to make sure students know that they do not have to stand up to recite the Pledge of Allegiance in classrooms here in Florida.
Luann's joining us right now with the latest details on this story. Hi, Lou.
Amy and John, good morning again. Students already have the option to not say the pledge, but now schools are required to let students know they have that right. Under this new law, each district will now be required to include a notice in the student handbook where students can easily see it. The goal here is to make sure students know that their constitutional rights do not end when they step into a classroom. The law is backed by the Central Florida Free Thought community, which defends the civil rights of atheists, free thinkers, and other non-believers. Now, this new law will take effect on July 1st.
Major question on social media. Now action is being taken. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg meeting this week with prominent conservatives in the media to address allegations of censoring conservative posts on his social media website. Todd Starnes from Fox News Radio joins us now because this happened to you?
Yes.
Sweet Todd Starnes? How could they possibly block you? Let me tell the audience. So you wrote, I'm wearing an NRA baseball cap, eating a Chick-fil-A sandwich, reading a Paula Deen cookbook, and sipping a 20-ounce sweet tea while sitting in my Cracker Barrel rocking chair, listening to Jesus Saves. It goes on, but it basically describes in this manner. And how do you know that as a result of this, you were blocked?
Oh, yes, I'm the bad boy of Facebook, Melissa.
And sweet tea.
And sweet. It was the 20-ounce sweet tea that got me, I think.
Yeah.
Well, shortly after I posted that message, and it was really talking about all the craziness of the politically correct crowd at the time. And I got a message from Facebook, and it said that this post violated their community standards, and they actually provided an actual image of a screenshot of my post, and they said I was blocked from Facebook.
They're exposing a surveillance program operating all around the Bay Area. Federal agents planting microphones to secretly record conversations. KPIX5's Jackie Ward is at the Oakland courthouse. Now, Jackie, can they legally do that?
Yes, they can, which may surprise a lot of you out there. Just imagine standing at that very bus stop, having a conversation with your friend and having no idea that your conversation was being recorded. It happens all the time, and the FBI says that they don't even need a warrant to do it.
They plant microphones under rocks, they plant microphones in trees, they plant microphones in equipment. I mean, there's microphones that are planted in places that people don't think about because that's the intent.
FBI agents hid microphones inside these light fixtures and at this bus stop without a warrant to record conversations between March 2010 and January 2011. The feds are trying to prove real estate investors in San Mateo and Alameda counties are guilty of bid rigging and fraud. Jeff Harp is a former FBI special agent and is now a KPIX5 security analyst.
An agent just can't go out and grab a recording device and plant it somewhere without authorization from a supervisor and, the special agent in charge.
The lawyer for one of the accused will ask the judge to throw out the recordings, telling me that, quote, speaking in a public place does not mean that the individual has no reasonable expectation of privacy. Private communication in a public place qualifies as a protected oral communication and therefore may not be intercepted without judicial authorization. So Jeff also says if you're going to conduct criminal activity, do it in the privacy of your own home. That was the original intention of the Fourth Amendment, but we'll see what the judge has to say on May 25th.
A year and a half ago, the law in California changed so that any stolen item below $950 in value, that was just a misdemeanor if you take it off the shelf and run out the door. First, I want you to tell our audience how much crime went up in California when they changed the law on shoplifting.
Well, Stuart, only the misguided, starry-eyed liberals in the California legislature can't understand the cause and effect here, that when you normalize criminal behavior, you're going to get more of it. When you punish criminal behavior, you're going to get less of it. So since Prop 47 about a year and a half ago has come into existence, they've seen an increase in violent crime in the 10 largest cities in California by 10%, and they've seen a rise in 9 of the largest 10 cities in California by 12% of property crimes alone. So this whole thing has been a disaster. It's been normalizing criminal behavior. They've turned their backs on the business community, who pay a large percentage of the property taxes, who employ people. The small businessman, small businesswomen, they employ people in California, and the legislature probably can't figure out why their unemployment rate is so high.
Why did they do this in the first place? What would be the thought process in reducing the penalties for crime? What do they expect to get out of it?
Well, like I said, it's just this misguided view of life. They look at these individuals, these criminals, as victims now. They're no longer looked at as being a stain on civil life in the state of California. They're victims, and so they feel sorry for them, and they don't want to stigmatize criminal behavior. But you have to keep criminal behavior stigmatized, otherwise you'll see a total collapse of the social order, and I think we're seeing that right now as they empty the prisons, and like I said, the cops are now the bad guys, and the criminals are the victims.
All right, in the meantime, we're getting some final rules, finally, on when overtime pay kicks in. Right now, it kicks in if you're earning a little bit north of $23,000, $24,000. The president wants to up that to somewhere in the mid-50s. And then you, as a salaried worker, would be getting overtime pay, like hourly workers get. The problem with that is that a lot of small businesses would have to do some quick scrambling and some quick paying. Hector Burrito is a Latino Coalition chairman. Hector, how do some of your members feel about that? Because for some of them, it's going to be at least an administrative headache, to say nothing of the cost.
Well, they're concerned about it, and you're starting to hear some of these folks doing calculations, and they think this could wipe out their profit completely. So this is another example where the administration is burdening the engine of America, which are those 28 million small businesses, with more regulation. And we've been seeing this for months now, and the concern is this is going to continue to the end of the administration. But we don't think this is a good move, and at the very least, we would like Congress to slow down, delay this, and really consider what the implications are going to be to those small businesses.
All right, now another thing that's happening here, whether you're into shopping or not, is that the middle class itself, big bulk of shoppers, I should point out, well, that's shrinking. There are fewer of them. In fact, There are those who are getting richer and those who are getting poorer at a much faster rate.
This is based on a Pew Research study, and out of 229 metro areas, 203 of them saw a decline in their middle-class population. And that's substantial, right? I mean, this is from 2000 to 2014, and there's a couple things happening. First, we talk about it quite frequently on here, is the changing of jobs. Yes, jobs are being created, but it's really a job shift. They're getting rid of the middle jobs, bringing on a lot of, lower paid jobs, and maybe not as many higher paid jobs. That's the one thing. The other thing is the big fat rise in sort of housing and rent rate costs that I think are sort of also eroding the middle class. I mean, rent rates are at an all-time high. Housing, in my guesstimation, is the average above what it was in 2006. In cities like Dallas, we've seen 150% rallies in real estate since 2012. So it's really the middle class getting attacked from all angles, and it is a problem. You mentioned something earlier that some cities did see an increase in upper echelon incomes, and that does lead to the question of, is this a way for the government to sort of come in, and are they going to be able to grab more taxes here? And what happens for the rest of middle America? Do they have a voice, or does everybody sort of drop off, and then does it continue to?
And I think you're right. I think, like Jared, that explains the
This week's earnings reports from retailers confirm what empty parking spaces have been suggesting. Sales are in a slump. Kohl's said profits dropped 87% last quarter. Macy's says its first quarter income was down 40%. Carter Evans with more on this.
This is what's left of the Sears in San Mateo, California, one of nearly 300 stores its parent company has closed over the last 2 years. Sears chairman says it's a victim of disruptive changes from online competition, and it's not the only one. Sports Authority plans to close 140 stores this year. Macy's will shutter 36 locations, and JCPenney closed 47 over the last year.
Venezuela is teetering on the verge of chaos after President Nicolas Maduro ordered a state of emergency. Maduro announced a full-blown state of emergency across the country on Friday, expanding on the more limited economic emergency he had declared in January. He also ordered military exercises over the weekend to counter alleged plans for what he called armed intervention. The extent of the decree is to be published on Monday, and Maduro said the measures, which initially apply for 3 months, will likely be extended through 2017. He threatened to take over private factories, which have stopped production, and jail their owners.
U.S.-led military drill has kicked off in Romania amid Russia's anger over NATO's growing presence in Eastern Europe. About 350 troops from Romania, Bulgaria, Moldova, Serbia, as well as Britain and the U.S. are taking part in the war games. It's part of an annual exercise conducted by the U.S. Marine forces that are deployed in Europe. The drill comes a few days after the U.S. activated a missile system in southern Romania and started a project to deploy its batteries in Poland. This has outraged Moscow, with President Vladimir Putin saying the missiles are aimed at weakening Russia. Putin has warned that Russia will counter emerging threats.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that Moscow will consider measures to counter threats posed by U.S. missile systems in Europe.
Now that these anti-missile elements have been installed, we will be forced to consider putting an end to the threats emerging in relation to Russia's security.
Putin said Russia will adjust defense spending plans to neutralize threats from the U.S. missile systems. He said Washington's move threatens global security and is a step towards a new arms race. However, Putin said Russia will not get engaged in a new arms race, but will continue modernizing its armed forces. Putin also said the U.S. missile system is a clear violation of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. The United States switched on an $800 million missile system in Romania on Thursday, which will be part of a larger missile system in Europe.
Here in New York, the police and fire departments have staged the city's largest ever terror drill. It was meant to be as realistic as possible, and the whole scene unfolded on a community college campus.
Sirens blaring, guns drawn.
There's a shooting this way.
And a helicopter bringing in backup. The largest police department in the country training for a terror attack.
Go long.
The New York Police Department using lessons learned in Paris, Brussels, and San Bernardino, simulating an attack where gunmen wearing suicide vests take hostages and launch a drone packed with a chemical weapon.
It's kind of a worst-case scenario.
That's correct.
Police Commissioner Bill Bratton calling intense practice like this critical to keep Americans safe.
오늘 훈련 지점이 서울에서는 가장 많은 사람들이 모이는 다중 집합 지역에서 이루어졌다는 데 큰 의미가 있고요. 지금까지 지하철 전동차가 터널에서 멈추어서는 그런 화재 사고에 대한 훈련이 처음이었고요.
Attention please, this is an important announcement to supporters currently in the South and East Stand. Please remain in your seats, waiting for further instruction and information.
Yeah, so I was in the area where you can have a beverage or food. My daughter was sitting in the seat in the North Stand, the Sir Alex Ferguson stand, and they announced right away, can everybody in this zone please leave? So I went in and got my daughter, and a few moments later, about 2-3 minutes later, the announcement came out around the stadium. It's a code red, please everybody evacuate the stadium.
Australia's been on heightened alert for attacks by homegrown radicals since 2014. Authorities say they have thwarted a number of potential events. Australia's Immigration Minister said about 100 people have left Australia for Syria to fight alongside organisations such as Islamic State. And more young people are feared to be participating in terrorist activities. A 16-year-old girl was arrested in March for financing an extremist organisation. The Australian government has initiated a $1 billion operation to prevent its citizens from getting trained in Syria and travelling back to Australia to conduct attacks.
Aggressive bees on the loose, terrifying a California town. The swarm trapping people inside their homes and cars, even sending some to the hospital. Beekeepers fighting to get them under control.
No one's sure where these bees came from, but we know where they went. Into kitchen windows, people's faces. got me right in the eye. And this mail carrier's hair.
I don't know what to do. I'm just running around, screaming.
2 people even hospitalized by the swarms, believed to be Africanized killer bees.
They were super aggressive. They were literally like following us and going after us and banging on the windows.
It was reminiscent of the movie The Birds. The bees attacking, you guessed it, on Hitchcock Road in Concord, California. The bees had apparently taken over this hive of honeybees on Friday, and when a beekeeper tried to extract the honey, they swarmed, pestering police, even dive-bombing this interview. Probably 7, 8, 9 times. Oh, there's 10. This morning, the hive owner says he destroyed the hive, but some of those bees are believed to be still buzzing around.
Earthquake, duck cover and...
Alert sent directly to cell phones, companies and government agencies, warning of a seismic event. Agencies like Seattle's Emergency Coordinating Center are testing an early warning system for a possible major earthquake off the coast of the Pacific Northwest of the United States. For most moderate earthquakes, the warning could be as little as 15 to 30 seconds. But its predictions that the West Coast is overdue a so-called big one, a potential 9+ magnitude earthquake that would cause widespread devastation and destruction, that is driving the installation of an alert system that could give as much as a 5-minute life-saving warning, as a catastrophic 9+ magnitude earthquake hits the Pacific Northwest on average once every 240 years. The last one was more than 300 years ago, and many fear the next big one is already well overdue.
A team of UH Manoa researchers spent 5 years studying the probability that Hawaii will be devastated by a direct hit from a tsunami. The experts say hundreds of thousands of people could be affected if it does happen. Lynn Kawano tells us what they found out and when the big one may hit.
So you can just see right here that it's aiming right at us, this section of the Aleutians.
Geophysicists from the University of Hawaii say if a powerful earthquake, a magnitude 9, hits parts of the Aleutian Islands, it could be devastating for Hawaii. The researchers have determined that in the next 50 years, there is a 9% chance of such an event.
These are rare events. They don't happen all the time, but there is a chance for them, and our effort here was to try to define what that chance might be.
Rhett Butler began studying the risks after the earthquake and subsequent tsunami that devastated parts of Japan in 2011. The researchers focused on the Aleutian Islands because of its close proximity to Hawaii and because a tsunami generated there could result in a direct hit, which could affect hundreds of thousands of people and cause billions of dollars in damage. The study wasn't done to scare people, but to remind them that we need to be prepared and always have an evacuation plan in place.
More than 10,000 residents have been relocated in China's Tibet Autonomous Region in the wake of Wednesday's earthquake. The tremor left over 100 houses destroyed and 69 people were injured. 12 severely injured people from Kata town, the earthquake's epicenter, are currently being treated in hospital. After intense efforts, 6 of the 8 damaged roads around town have been reopened.
Japan has been hit by another earthquake, this time a 5.6 magnitude trembler in the north of the country. The Japan Meteorological Agency said the quake struck Ibaraki Prefecture at around 9:23 p.m. local time on Monday evening. There have been no immediate reports of injuries. Also, no tsunami warning was issued, but local train operations have temporarily been suspended for safety checks. The quake rattled Tsukuba, where the science and technology ministers from the Group of 7 nations are meeting as we speak. The latest quake comes a month after 2 strong earthquakes struck the country's Kumamoto prefecture, leaving dozens dead and destroying many houses.
Lebanon's Hezbollah group says its top commander, Mustafa Badreddin, has been killed in an attack in Syria. It's being seen as the biggest blow to the Iranian-backed organization since its military chief was killed in 2008. Badreddin was one of the highest-ranking officials in the group. The US government believed he was responsible for Hezbollah's military operations in Syria. Reports say he was killed in a big explosion at one of the group's bases near Damascus airport. An investigation is now underway into the cause of the blast. But the Lebanese TV station Al Mayadeen earlier reported he had been killed in an Israeli attack. Israel has not yet responded to the claims.
ونود الله يرحمه برحمته ومبارك شهادته الله ينصرهم